Hey, I'm Jake Thistle. You were listening to my weekly mixtape with Brian Colburn, and I had such a great time. I really hope you guys enjoy.
What is going on, friends? Welcome to My Weekly Mixtape, the show that takes the classic mixtape approach to building a modern playlist. I'm your host, Brian Colburn, and tonight is a first for the show as I'm welcoming a guest who's currently mid-competition on the latest season of American Idol. So we're about to get the lowdown from the inside. My guest hails from Paramus, New Jersey, which makes my Jersey pride beam proud. But beyond him being local to where I grew up, he's also an incredibly gifted singer-songwriter whose music is rooted in the kind of artists that are not only favorites of mine, they're staple topics here on My Weekly Mixtape. And we're talking the likes of John Hiatt and Tom Petty, just to scratch the surface. So with that, it's my pleasure to welcome Jake Thistle to the show. Jake, welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm super excited. It means the world.
Now, I always start my episodes by asking a first-time guest question. However, considering you're officially my youngest guest at 21 years old, I'm not quite sure how this one's going to land, but there's only one way to find out. And that is, Jake, what does the word mixtape mean to you?
It means a podcast I'm currently doing. I don't have much experience with mixtapes, of course. I wish I did, because it seems like a really awesome thing. But, for me, a mixtape is a lot more of a digital feature. I've made playlists for my friends on Spotify, especially, being, with the Idol crew or like other songwriters and just meeting. There's a lot of, oh, you haven't heard that? And then I'll put together a playlist. But that's about as much of the surfaces I've scratched in terms of mixtapes.
That concept is what I am trying to, through this show, carry to playlists, because growing up, you had to commit time and energy in choosing songs and recording them in real time onto a cassette. And now with playlists, I could create a 200 song playlist in about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And the thought process behind what songs does this person need to listen to truly understand what I'm trying to convey to them is what I'm trying to bring across on this show.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, that's the funny thing for me about doing it digitally is it's not lost on me how easy it is to also be done with it and go, yeah, you know what? I'll swap this with that. And it's like I could just go right in the middle and move it to the end. And, it's and so I don't take that for granted how sort of easy sharing music has gotten.
It certainly has. So let's start here in New Jersey, where, as everyone who listens knows, My Weekly Mixtape is also based. You grew up in Paramus, New Jersey, aka the mall capital of Bergen County.
I did.
And you attended Rutgers University. So can you talk about your experiences growing up in and performing around New Jersey, and what venues do you consider pivotal in your growth as an artist?
Oh, man. Well, first of all, I consider myself really, really lucky to grow up where I did for a number of reasons. I mean, just first of all, going to school, my entire time in public school in Paramus was molded by an incredible music program. And that wasn't something my parents knew when they moved here and had me. That just was sort of, I got lucky and I ended up in a town that really valued music and sort of the enrichment of that education. So that was a huge part of growing up. And so I'm really proud of that, but it was pure coincidence and I really lucked out. Aside from that, the scene here is so rich. Growing up in Bergen County, I got to play with a lot of legends who, really, really shaped how I learned. I mostly learned off YouTube in terms of traditional lessons. So I had so many teachers, like stage teachers, who I could just watch up there and join them or whatever. And that's really where I cut my teeth. And so throughout whatever scene I'm in, I'm just so fortunate to have, been able to share the stage with people like that. In terms of venues that I really appreciate, there's a number of them. I mean, I play in Asbury Park all the time. And so, I have to sort of include them first. The Wonder Bar and the Stone Pony have, I've been really lucky to be able to call them home in for a lot of aspects. The Count Basie Theater in Red Bank, those are some of my fondest memories are there. There's a place that is no longer open. It's a new place now, but it was called Jigs McAllister's Music Saloon. And that was in Butler, New Jersey. And that's where I probably learned more about what I do now than anywhere else. I would play there with a guy named Lou Pallo, who was the rhythm guitarist in the Les Paul Trio. And I was the youngest guy in this band by about 70 years, without exaggeration. I think he passed when I was 16 and he was 86. So I was a young guy in that band, but just the knowledge of that group was insane to me. The guys he would bring around, the Lou Palo and Friends, band. And I played there almost every Sunday for 6 years with him. And, guys like Vince Ginnella and like other really great teachers in the scene I played with at that place. So that's a place for my roots that it definitely was quintessential to me growing up as well.
And did playing with those artists shape how you write music?
Absolutely. I think, you look at guys like that, especially when I was growing up, seeing artists that would play shows, whether it was with their originals or their covers. That's really where I learned how a set list should be. It's really lucky to get to go see an artist play the Garden, and you can learn a ton from watching that too. But there's something about a traveling show that has, a lighting rig that's put up every night and a stage that looks the same. There's something about that is a completely different atmosphere than, going to a bar and you have the same stage that every band that ever plays there has, and you have to find a way to make that your own. And I think sort of the way that's the easiest to come across is through your song choice and through your show pacing and everything like that. So I got a real kick out of watching these sort of mentors at the gigs I would go to and see, oh, okay, they ended with that multiple times. Why did they end with that at different shows? And why did he switch that to a different song this time? And I got a real kick out of trying to figure all that out.
Well, as much as I can talk about the New Jersey music scene for hours on end, we are here to talk about your experiences thus far on American Idol. So first off, color me impressed that you auditioned with Blind Faith's Can't Find My Way Home.
Oh, thank you.
What is it about that song that made you feel like that was the perfect introduction to Jake Thistle for Lionel Richie, Luke Bryan, and Carrie Underwood?
Well, the one thing I wasn't, I considered myself really comfortable down there just because I love playing, and I love playing and getting immediate feedback. And that's, like I was saying before, that's the way I've learned. So I was super excited to go down, but the part that was really foreign to me was the fact that I had 90 seconds to show Jake Thistle to these people, and I knew that it was probably going to be even less than that, in the cut. And so I really tried to pick my song strategically. And I thought Can't Find My Way Home was a really great cross section of so many people know that song, but it's not a song that they're going to hear 1,000 times a day when they're going through these auditions. And I wanted to be mindful of that too, and give them something that might make them perk up and say, oh, we haven't heard that yet, or in a while or something. And then, more so, I think Blind Faith has that. It's just such a rich 60s bluesy sound. And so they're a big influence, and that is definitely a part of me I wanted to show, but it's still Steve Winwood, and it's still that sort of Steve Winwood pop sensibility. And I thought that catchy chorus and the way you could just, 3 days later, you're still humming that song. So I thought that might be a really fun way to sort of express my pop side as well. So it was an exciting choice for me, and I was really glad that it sort of went that way as well.
Oh, so it was an excellent song choice, and one that, as somebody who's watched American Idol for many years, one just with me and my wife 20 years ago when Carrie Underwood was just a contestant on the show, to me watching with my daughters now, a lot of artists seem to lean towards pop and the newer style of music. So seeing somebody your age pulling from the classic rock side of the spectrum, if you will, was that a strategic decision on your part before showing more of your pop sensibilities?
To an extent it was, but honestly, I think one of the things I try to do the most when I listen to music is I consider myself lucky that of the influence I have, especially the older ones, I'm able to kind of look at their career from a bird's eye view. If you take a guy like, Steve Winwood, the day I discovered Steve Winwood was the day that, Can't Find My Way Home came out on the same day as Back in the High Life Again to me, because it was whatever day I heard them,
Yes.
And so I think it was definitely in my mind to, want to show that side, maybe to make myself stand out a little bit, just because, I think you're right. I think there is a lot of pop on the show, of which I consider myself a part of for sure. And, I did a newer song the next week to sort of show that side. But, for me, I think it's less about the era and more about what speaks to me. And then it just sort of happened to be from that era too. And I will take all of the sort of connotations that also, brings to me.
Well, you mentioned the pop song, so let's get into that. For Hollywood Week, well, Nashville Week, you performed Sam Fender's 17 Going Under. Can you talk about the mindset behind that song choice, especially when all the other stressors that are coming into this American Idol experience are coming into play? How much is it 100% on you to pick the song, or are there producers and people giving you advice and feedback on where you should go for those song choices? Because that's not presented on TV.
Yeah, I mean, I will say in terms of the producers and Idol, I've been really impressed so far exactly how much of what we get to do is ourselves. And that's not something through all the media training I would say if I didn't 100% believe it. You know what I mean? Like, there's definitely factors that come into play in terms of, what might or not clear, so that's always something you have to consider as well. But in terms of song choice, it's pretty much 100% up to us. And they're very generous, the producers, with their opinions and getting to kind of go out in front of them and talk to people who know the show and know how the judges will react. And they have a pretty good sense of how America might act too. So I take what they say very, very seriously. And there wasn't, I mean, not to jump to another round, but in Hawaii, I was between, a song or another song. And I took their advice and ended up, doing what I wanted to do. But yeah, for the most part, it is our choice. And so for the Sam Fender song, to me, that was just, I really wanted to show another side of me. We were getting to play with the band. Before I even heard them, I knew for a fact that it was an amazing band because I'm a Chris Pooley fan, who is the musical director. And I know he only works with like sort of the best people around. And so I just wanted to pick an upbeat song that kind of showed a little bit of the more, indie rock type vibe. That's something I love. And I'm a huge Sam Fender fan. I'm a huge fan of that song. And I was sort of really present when that song was having a moment, whether it was on TikTok or just on the radio, a couple years ago. And so unlike Can't Find My Way Home, which I've played with my band for a long time, I'm pretty sure when I played 17 Going Under on the show, it was my first time actually ever playing the song. I kind of picked it as a gamble and said, I just really want to try this. And I had an opportunity to play it beforehand, but I worked on it and I was happy with how it went.
Well, you could have fooled me. I thought you've been playing that for a while, the way you made it look up there.
That's kind of you. I've been listening to it a while, so that helped.
Now, I'm sure there's some listening that would love a glimpse inside of the American Idol universe. So what happens in the hours outside of the show taping that the television audience never sees?
Well, I mean, I will say another thing I've been impressed with getting to watch this all back, because of course, pretty much everything that was pre-filmed was filmed before the first episode aired. So I've gotten a kick out of watching everything back, and I've been impressed with how accurate the sort of episodes have been edited, that what I'm seeing is what my experience was, and I think that's the case for most people, for sure. It's TV and it's reality, and it reminds me a lot of touring in the sense of it's a ton of hurry up and wait, which I get a kick out of. It's kind of fun for me anyway, so that's okay. But yeah, I mean, they're definitely long days, and there's a great, they do a great job. There's a good support system for the hopefuls and the contestants, and getting to go in and talk to the producers or talk to getting a band rehearsal in. I mean, you have limited time with everybody, especially with the larger pool that is auditioning in the given day. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of hurry up and wait, which allowed us to make a lot of good friends. And so I'm really grateful for the people I have gotten to interact with, both that are, still in the competition and some that have gone home. But it was a great time because there's such a shared passion between the hopefuls, and we're all quite, right around the same age. And so, we like all the same music and everything like that. And it was really a great time. It's like summer camp in a lot of ways,
Ah, there you go. Now, was there ever a moment during filming where you or maybe other people have expressed to you, wow, this is more intense than could ever be portrayed on television?
Yeah, well, the two things I'll think, Hollywood Week, I don't remember the exact day on how it ended up coming out through the edit, but the day I played was a very long day, because I played the same day as the whole sing-off round was filmed, and the Golden Room, and none of us knew. That was all completely real. We didn't know we were singing off. Like, that wasn't a reaction shot for the cameras, and we all picked a sing-off song and had like 10 minutes to rehearse it, and prayed we weren't one of the ones that got picked. And I didn't end up having to do a sing off. So that was a very long day. If I remember correctly, I think we were on the shuttle to the theater sometime around 7 a.m. And I don't think we got home till like 1:30. So, you know, in the morning, I mean, so it
Yeah.
was a long
Wow.
day, but it was a fun day. And I love that stuff. I mean, I really like, getting to sweat it out and talk with people and just talk music for that long. So I had a great time, but it definitely was intense. And there's a lot of nerves flying around with everybody, of course, having to do something like that. And when we were in Hawaii, it was super hot and we were outside. And so that was definitely a consideration. And you really have to leverage, okay, do I want to be dehydrated or have to pee real bad? Because like you don't know when the next reset's going to be. They need us for a lot of stuff. So it's like, okay, yesterday I tried to be dehydrated and I hated it. So today I'm just going to have to pee real bad. Like you got to pick. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely intense moments, but I'm sure people say this every season, but I really mean it. It's an incredible group that I got to hang out with on this show, and everyone's been so supportive of each other, and that's really meant the world to me because that's my favorite thing to see.
Now I want to talk strategy for a second, because at the end of the day, American Idol is a competition. So are you picking songs with the judges in mind, the audience in mind, or simply based on your own comfort level of knowing the song because of all of the extracurricular activities going on around you?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely a combination of all three, and my strategy is shifting as we speak because up to this point, I was pretty much only picking it for the judges because they were the ones who were making the decision. Now that I'm switching to America's vote, the judges are still going to have to play a major factor in my decision making because, I've watched the show. I know that their comments influence the voters' decisions as they should. So I definitely want to keep them happy as well as, hopefully make America happy. But yeah, for me, the main thing I've received from the judges, and I think all three rounds, is that they really appreciated my authenticity and sort of my artistry, and I mean, it means the world. That is the reason. That was the one thing I wanted to convey from the show, and so it means the world that they said that to me. But in my decision making, that's always the first thing I think of is, all right, I don't want to do the same thing every round, but is that me, and can I pull that off without seeming like, all right, Jake's trying to take it up a notch. That was kind of a miss. You know what I mean? I want to, if I'm taking it up a notch, I don't even want anyone to notice. I just want them to walk away and be like, wow, that was really cool. Not like, okay, well, he was certainly trying to do something. That's definitely not what I want. So I would say the first thing that comes into my mind is maintaining those judge comments, because I think because the comments were about authenticity, I think that if I can maintain that, it will translate best to the voters now that, that's coming up.
Now, earlier you talked about the bonds you formed with other contestants on the show. Considering how subjective music is, do you and the other contestants ever talk song strategy and kind of the mindset around it?
I mean, I'm trying to think about that. I don't know if we've had any specific conversations about our individual strategies, because I think at the end of the day, it boils down to just we all want to have fun and do the best job we can. But we've definitely talked a lot about songs and song choice, and I think song choice is obviously really important, but this season I think it's been at the forefront. And there's been times, I'll walk away from seeing a friend play and I'll just be like, holy crap, like you could not have picked a better song for this round. Like there just have been moments both live and rewatching it where I'm just like, that could not have gone better. Like that was so much fun to see. And so we talk a lot about that sort of retroactively, I think. It'll be interesting to see. I'm sure that'll change when we do live shows because, for the most part, we picked our songs when we were apart from everybody. I think we had submitted our songs. We had done a lot of rehearsals in Hawaii, but I think they were all submitted like right before we left. So we weren't sort of like in that shared space where I was like, I'm thinking about doing this or maybe this. Like, I think at least I hadn't kind of locked that in beforehand. I'm not sure if everyone had. So I think that might change, when we get a little further in.
Well, this last week during the Ohana round, you performed one of your original songs, Sleep on Me.
Yes.
There's no mistake in the hum of the night. Cotton lies and polyester fights. And this shirt was even cheaper than it is tight. Shouldn't it be hard letting go of something you kinda like? So sleep on me, one day I'm gonna get it right. Sleep on me, sleep on. I'ma make it up to you kind of guy. Trying to be someone who you like. Sleep on me, sleep on. I'm a stranger by design.
Is there a different mindset when performing an original song for the judges and audience, knowing there's no built-in familiarity with the track?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a factor. I think there is a risk, especially on a show like this where there's still 30 of us. You know, there's a ton of people to get through in 2 hours. And I think it's in everybody's best interest to make the editor's jobs easy too. And if you can do a song, and I think Can't Find My Way Home is a good example of that. Like, it's short, there's basically 2 verses that get repeated and you can get right out. I think it made the editor's job relatively easy. And then if you're going to do an original, it might take a little bit longer time to get the audience on your side, whether in person or in the edit. And so it was definitely a risk to try something like that, but it was just super important to me because songwriting is everything. I consider myself a songwriter before I even consider myself a singer or a guitar player. Like that's what I want to do. And so I weighed that kind of back and forth for a while we were in Hawaii. But at the end of the day, I think I if I was going to go home, I would have rather it have been on an original anyway. And so I was willing to take that risk even just for that. It was just important to me to show that side of me, even if it was just specifically to the 3 judges so they knew and it didn't make the cut. Like that was really, really important to me. And so it was an honor to get to see that on TV. It really meant the world. And I had bonded with the other songwriters on the set a lot as well. And there were a couple originals other than mine in the episode too. And I think everyone who did an original ended up going through, which was like an incredible moment for us. And we were all super happy for each other with that.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned about yourself during this experience that has nothing to do with singing or performing music?
Well, I think a lot of it for me is sort of, you do a ton of interviews for this too. And it's been a lot of fun for me. And I mean, interviews specifically in the show for, the pre-roll tapes. And now that I think every single one of them before an episode even aired. So now that I'm seeing how they're editing things, I think when I go in to do that, I think I know a little bit more of the type of things I should be saying and the type of things that might make the cut. I tend to be, I've had publicists before call me like very diplomatic, and I think sometimes I get a question and sort of like a presidential candidate, I'll be like, well, that's really interesting you say that because this and that, and it ends up kind of coming out. And I think this experience has taught me to be a little bit more succinct and a little bit more direct in terms of, again, making the editors' lives a little bit easier.
Well, along with your original track that we played earlier, I want to focus on some of your original music because there's people here that are listening to this episode that only know you from American Idol. And I want to introduce some of your other songs. And you recently released a track called Alone Together.
Yes, I did.
Factory spy, spilling Armageddon to the sky. It don't ever get dark, just a violet shade of fire. I'm watching the skyline come crawling, laughing cause we're so far apart. I'm either waiting for a sign or stalling, sitting in an idling car.
When someone hears this song for the first time, what emotion or reaction would make you feel like it landed exactly as you intended when you were writing it?
Well, I wrote this song basically from the New Jersey Turnpike while I was driving. And so I think for me, there's sort of a longing and a distance within the song. And so I hope they can feel that. I hope they kind of feel that sense of being so close yet so far away. I remember going, whether it was from Asbury to Paramus or Rutgers to, New York or whatever it was. I just remember being on that stretch of the Turnpike all the time and going up to Bergen County. I'd look on my left and it would just be like Elizabeth, which is all just like, like big power plants and landfills and whatever. And on the other side, it would be like the sun setting and it would like reflect off the buildings and hit me back from the Manhattan skyline. And I thought it was the most beautiful thing in the world. And then I'd look over in power plants and I just was fascinated by those two worlds. And so that's kind of was the basis of the song, was that these two worlds are completely separate. They're alone, but they're together. I can see both of them at the same time and they're really not that far away. And so that was sort of the beginning of the song, was that sort of longing to, experience the beauty, but knowing that the sort of, that's where Jersey gets the stupid armpit of America name. It's from this right here. That's what people see when they drive through.
I'm not going to lie. I smelled your answer as you were talking about
exactly,
it.
Right. Yeah. First you side eye whoever's in the passenger seat and say, what did you do? And then you get a couple feet and you go like, oh no, that's just what this area smells like,
Now, at the top of the show, I mentioned Tom Petty and John Hiatt, two of my favorite songwriters of all time. And having watched your fantastic covers of both artists on your YouTube channel, I'm going to ask you what I consider to be an extremely difficult question. If someone listening to this show has never heard either one of those artists before, what 3 songs from each artist would you use to properly introduce them to each of their respective musical universes?
Man, well, I guess I'll go Tom Petty first, although I'm already terrified to answer this for either question. But my sort of, it's so hard to pick a favorite song of all time, but sort of 2 songs that are always kind of closing in on that. One's by John and one's by Tom. So that's going to be easy, the first slot. But for Petty, I'll say Crawling Back to You from the Wildflowers record is like, that's like, I've probably heard that song more than any other song. I can like, there's very few songs I've learned like note for note, like, and that song is like, I can play any part. Like everything about that song is my favorite. So that'd be the first song I'd introduce if you wanted to learn about Jake Thistle too. Like that song's been such a big part of my life. So I'll say Crawling Back to You. The next one I'll say is, I'll say Have Love Will Travel from The Last DJ. I'm going a little left field with this one, but I just think that's such a interesting story and the way he wrote that. And I think it just, a lot of that language that he uses in there is so quintessential Tom Petty. Like maybe not even in the songwriting, but just like I can hear the way he spoke in those lyrics, Yeah, Maggie's still trying to rope a tornado. Like I could just hear him saying that, it just seems so conversational. And I think, I think I could be wrong, but yeah, that kind of followed all the Rick Rubin stuff. I think it's sort of the Heartbreakers, like everyone's at their best on that record, I think, and so it sounds really Heartbreakers to me. And then I feel like for the third one, I have to throw in a hit or else that's not really, you have to understand Tom Petty. You have to like the hits, right? So, I'll say I Won't Back Down because it's, as a songwriter, it's such a frustrating song because it's an amazing song. It's so well written. And there's like 4 lines in the whole song, there's so much repetition. He says so much in like, 6 lines. It's the worst. It's like, I write these lines. It's like, he says more in that song with 3 lines than I say in like 18 verses. And so that's amazing. And there's so much to learn from that. It's the first song I ever learned how to play. It's the first song I ever sang. So I'll say that.
All right.
Oh, and now I got to do John Hiatt.
Yeah, no pressure.
Adios to California.
Ooh.
It's like my favorite John Hiatt song. So I'll say that. Tennessee Plates. Nice. I don't think it gets more Hiatt than that. So I mean, that's just right there. And then, oh man, that third one, this is the one that's going to get me. I don't know which one. I'm thinking, let's see. I'm going to say for the third one, Cry Love.
Oh.
Because I can't do that and not put a song from Walk On there. I mean, you just have to include something from Walk On. And it bums me out that I didn't say anything from Crossing Muddy Waters, but that's the nature of the question.
Well, I'm going to just throw this out there while we're talking. If you make it to Disney Week, which you're going to, you really need to consider Let It Ride or Straight Through the Heart of Love from the Country Bears, because that's a way to sneak some Hiatt into the competition.
There you go. Yeah.
So Now, while Tom is sadly no longer with us, Mr. Hiatt just this past week had some incredibly kind things to say about you when he performed at the Mayo Arts Center with Lyle Lovett. Considering your love of his music, what was that moment like for you?
It was just incredible. I mean, the support that both of them have shown me over the years is honestly, I mean, it's unfathomable to me. Like they are both John and Lyle are such beacons, not only in the music industry, but just in my own life and my own sort of upbringing. And I grew up idolizing them, and both of their support has really meant the world. You know, I played with Hiatt when I was 12 years old, and it was like an aha moment for me. Like it was the first time I ever played in a theater. I played Have a Little Faith in Me with John Hiatt at his encore at a show. And I remember standing up there and just being like, I will never be able to have a different job. Like this is just exactly what I want to do. And that moment was so formative for me. But he still like called up a 12-year-old, and like I can't believe he had the faith in me to allow me to do that. Was so kind of him. And Lyle's the same way. That the support he's shown me over the years, in person and online, and sharing my music has been unfathomable. I mean, it's really just, it's so kind. And so getting to sit there and hear them say that it definitely was a full circle moment for me. And it was, really validating, and it meant the world.
Jake, what's one album you consider to be truly perfect from start to finish? And what about that record makes it flawless to you?
Well, normally my answer would be either Wildflowers by Tom Petty or Dirty Jeans and Mudslide Hymns by John Hiatt. But see, I used both. I used two songs for my 3 ranking over there already for those two. So I'll push those aside and say I acknowledge that they're perfect from my other 2 answers. And I would say I'm a huge fan of a guy named Brian Dunn, who I've been lucky enough to, sort of, be friends with over the years. So I opened for his band Fantastic Cat for a couple, for about a month last year. And he's got a record called Loser on the Ropes that is just, it's just one of my favorites, really of all time. I didn't really know him when he put it out. I knew him like a little bit through crossing over through a scene or two, but I put it on when I was driving one day. It's about the exact same length as a drive to school when I was going to Rutgers. And it sounds like my freshman year of college, and it really influenced sort of my sort of soundscape writing production, ideas.
Well, before we wrap things up, like we talked about at the top of the episode, the show is built around the concept of mixtapes and playlists and pushing musical envelopes. And you talked about earlier how you share songs with other contestants when you're talking and in that downtime. So for the people listening, what are 3 songs you're personally rocking to right now that you think the My Weekly Mixtape listeners should have on their radars?
Oh, wow. All right. Well, let's see. I'm going to say, we spoke a little bit about Sam Fender before, so I'll throw out, let's see, I'll say People Watching, which is the title track off a record that I guess came out last year now, but it was one of my favorite records of the year, and I really enjoyed it. So I'll say People Watching by Sam Fender. I will say Harmonia's Dream by The War on Drugs.
Wow.
Which was that my silence was trying to pick a song from that record too, because I also love I think
Such
that
a
was
great album.
I know. That's from I Don't Live Here Anymore, I think.
No, you got it. That's the album.
Anything from that, I mean, you can't go wrong. That's another one of my favorite records. And then I'll bring it back full circle because we were talking about Hiatt, and I'm going to say I Just Don't Know What to Say by John Hiatt. I didn't mean a pun there, but I remember that song slipped my radar for about 5 years. Like I knew Hiatt, I knew almost every Hiatt song for 5 years, and somehow I didn't really know that one. And I heard it on my way to high school one day, like one of my first days I was driving to high school. And I remember I was supposed to be early for something, and I heard that song, and I was like, nope, I'm staying in the parking lot and listening to that one more time, So I'll say that one for my third one.
Oh, the Mystic Pinball album. You got me right there. My Business. I Just Don't Know What to Say. Man, when I'm done with this interview, I know the first album I'm putting on.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Jake, I wish you the best of luck on this season of American Idol. I know I and the rest of the My Weekly Mixtape listeners are going to be voting for you, and I look forward to having you back on the show when you win the whole damn thing.
Oh gosh, well, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I mean, it's been such a great time, so I can't express how excited I am to just be hanging with everybody. And I keep telling them, like, everybody that's in this top 20, top 30, whatever, their front row tickets are about to get really expensive. So I'm just glad to be sitting there now while I can afford it, you know?
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk about it tonight on My Weekly Mixtape with me.
Oh, of course. Thank you so much.
And to the My Weekly Mixtape community, if you're a fan of American Idol, please be sure to throw some votes Jake's way. If you enjoy what you're hearing on the show, I want to hear about it. myweeklymixtape@gmail.com. Hit me up on social media at myweeklymixtape. You can use the contact page at myweeklymixtape.com, or you could join the Mixtaper community at patreon.com/myweeklymixtape. It's free to join, and there's several tiers available if you'd like to support the show a little extra. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, please leave a 5-star review, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, drop a comment, do all the things, and help spread the word about My Weekly Mixtape to other music fans in your life. Once again, my name is Brian Colburn. This has been My Weekly Mixtape, and until next time, enjoy the tunes.